that there were issues in knowing how to develop a problem statement, the objectives, referencing was an issue, getting relevant literature was an issue. And then, of course, there was an issue, the distance, where the student was coming from to where the supervisor is. So the interaction was minimal. Then we also found there was a literal system support in terms of, the way we offer it to our students. We taught them research, and then we come and tell them, now start your research, your proposal. We find that they are not very well inducted into the research area. Then what happened between that period, also there was issues of employment. This was a teacher on internship. Those who are not fully employed, they are on internship by TSC. So there was issues of payment and all this. And actually the supervisor had to come in to support and write a letter to TSC. It was not the business of the supervisor, but the students requested, write for me a letter to TSC so that I can get paid. And this had to happen. So there were those challenges. Then between April 2021 to March April 2022, there were a lot of social issues on the students. This was a young man who had just completed his first degree, and now he's in his master's. The community demanded he needs to marry. And the marriage took some time. When we got married, we were also invited to the wedding. The service stopped completely. When we could see images on WhatsApp, on the negotiation process, the wedding, and even the honeymoon. I think the honeymoon ended in December. That's why we came back in April 2022, to bring the proposal with corrections. Then comes in an issue. The minutes of the proposal, of the presentation, had excluded one of the supervisors. So there has been a question, was this supervisor removed or what happened? So those are issues that were solved 2 days ago. Thank you so much.
We go to group 2. Must I come there? Who was drawing a graph? It looks like you stole my graph.
Can use the same.
Yes. I remember that this is prejudice. My name is as I said, I don't know why we are addressing science and lecturers. So in our case, I directly took my own student, who I was allocated in 2020, April, a principal of school around this student took like 5 months to identify the topic. And from my observation of her, she's a little under trouble. The trouble arose from the coursework. From my understanding, you don't identify your area of interest from coursework, whether it's master's or PhD. Then you complete your studies. Then you now start conceptualizing what you're going to study. You will get into trouble. And then the student also came with various topics. The mind was fixed. This is the right thing to do. It took us like 5 months from April to around September 2020 to identify which topic to do. After the topic was identified, we took another
10 months.
Several months.
10 months.
Up to September 2021. That's when the student presented her proposal for defense at the school. And the proposal was passed with major corrections. That also set in another trouble because colleagues introduce other variables. I myself had not set of the student could not understand. It was also complicated by the aspect that the other second supervisor works and lives in their own. From that September 2021, the student passed draft of our thesis arrived like 3 days ago. So what are the challenges that I can know from one, the challenge of topic formulation, which I have already said. At any level, whether it is a master's or a PhD, if the coursework was haphazardly done, if the student was doing pass exams and the student passed and the student did not conceptualize, like me, I come from a discipline called planning and economics of education. Although sometimes I dabble in the regional philosophy in the School of Arts when they want someone of my background. But my specialty is planning and economics of education. That's what I have done here at the level. If the student doesn't understand the key scholars in the areas of planning and economics of education, what were their philosophies, the theories that are involved in that discipline, this student will drag on forever. What we need to do, we need to review, like us in education, we are recommending that we have more courses of research introduced at master's and at PhD level. Because our students, my CODs here, they struggle with topic formulation. And for some years, we have even had students who reach at the defense level, and we say this was the wrong topic. In the university where I did my master's and PhD, that was unacceptable. You could not have students come to defend at the final level, and we are discussing the topic. Someone will be harmed for that. Here we don't have input. We blame students and say they did not listen and they were difficult. Elsewhere, the person responsible to process you from the department to the faculty, then our graduates will be new by ourselves. Here we don't still have new by ourselves. We are still building one. We'll get it soon. So we have had that challenge in education, and then we are trying to say, okay, why don't we review? We have actually reviewed our curriculum to introduce variables that we think are very necessary. Our students also have a problem with literature review, and this literature review, I tie it with objective formulation and research questions or hypotheses, whatever the student wants to use. And the challenge here, in my short observation at this university, still goes back to how we are doing our coursework. If the coursework is done in the way I have said, then the student will have a problem. Like this particular one had a problem with literature review. Then, also the type of work the students are doing. You have a principal of a school, group of schools that are very busy people there, chasing scores, books of account are not in order. And my wife wants to close books. So if you have that kind of a student, by the way, like this one, if I left her, you can see 24 months later, she's presenting a class thesis. The normal way of Kisii University, she will not be she will not have produced a past thesis. What my group recommended is that we need to have timelines. I hope the dean part of my group, the other things are here. Why can't you develop timelines like other universities? So that we know if you are given a student, you are a supervisor in January, by December, what will you have done with this student? I'm sorry to say, my colleagues who are here, me, I don't come from that school of blaming students. I stopped blaming students when I graduated with my PhD. I brought the problem to me because I am the driver. How can you, as a driver, blame passengers that the vehicle is old, there is no fuel? If you are the driver, and it has worked. I was given PhD students who are busy some years back. And I told them, my friend, I don't want you to do PhD 7 years like the way I did. There's no PhD for 7 years. Your PhD is exactly how many years? 3 years. And in 3 years, it will do. But why don't you clap?
Candidates, thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
I see you as
The driver blaming passengers. Yeah, that's a very important, a very good example. Yeah. As the supervisor, you have the driver. Yes, yes.
You can't blame the passenger.
Yeah. It is true. That was a very good statement.
And it's a mature student who works in research institute. He works there as a research assistant, and he completed his coursework in May 2015. Then he took 6 months to present the first draft at the department, and then after that presentation, it took a few months, and in 2016, the proposal was ready for presentation at the school level. After that, he was given some corrections, but then he disappeared for 2 years. Then he came back in 2018, close to the end of that, with the corrected fashion, which he presented. And then after that, it took around 7 months to correct the data, which was quite impressive to us. Then after that, he disappeared from end of 2018 up to 2020. In 2020, he came with the first draft of the thesis, which was given 10 months. So maybe that one also discouraged me, and he went back. He disappeared for the next 1 year. He appeared in 2021 with corrected fashion, and then he did the first manuscript. He published within that year, and he was now to make a second manuscript and a final thesis, but he stagnated there up to now. So far, he has taken 8 years. Master's, that's a master's student. And we were three supervisors. We had direct scopes in him, but as more challenges was facing, we discussed that in this panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is where it's level.
For election. He's running for election.
Yes.
So,
Amen.
our approach was quite different. What we have here, actually, we did a histogram.
Please use this one because that one is not visible.
We used a histogram for Dr. Demanda's students. And we have time here. We changed our time in months. And then we have activity here, what the student was doing. So we have our 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, and 4 months, which is of course 1 year. Then we have various activities here which were happening. The first activity was concept development, which took around 3 months. So that will be somewhere here. This was concept development, one. Then the student had to develop some proposal which took around 6 months. This is Dr. Demanda's student, so 6 months develop proposal development. Yeah. Then the next activity was on data collection, which took around 3 months. So you have your 3 months here. This, and then from data collection, there was data analysis which took around 4 months. So 4 months are around here. Then we have defense. After the analysis, we have the defense. And when there, the student took around 6 months. So now we have 6 months somewhere here. And this was defense. This was data analysis. There is the aspect of data collection here. Collection. There is the proposal, and then there is the concept development. So cumulatively, this student took around 20 months. If you add all this, it comes around 20 months. But there are some factors which led to this. And we classify these factors as institutional-based factors, which can be expanded, student-based factors. Then we have those factors which surround the supervisor. Then explain the factors like publication, how long the student takes to publication, the journal factors, and all that. And the unseen factors like what we had here, the corona. So there was no interaction, there was nothing, no activity in between. So this was student has been in class for around 1 year. So in total, the student took 2 years and some months. So the grand assistant right with it. Thank you so much. You are around correction.
Yes, it's
I want to congratulate all the groups. Their graphs, and those graphs are the same. The first one we call it a histogram, and the other one is a polygon. But you see, you can even superpose the same. But as a matter of correction in future, kindly always remember that time must always be on the x-axis, must always be on the x-axis, because we could still achieve the same histogram after interchanging the time, but some scientifically, the time is on the
Is one
The same programming, we got the midpoints, we will obtain that
graphs and
sequence.
data.
Only one, they are the same and they are very good.
Yes.
Thank you.
I did something that was very statistical. I needed someone along.
That's connected.
I'm also allowed, I think I'm also in mathematics, and this is for about not the histogram. The histogram has
Yeah.
so I know it's invented. It's not that it's not one of our courses, but we are allowed.
Now, there we are. Have you ever thought of how long your students takes? Has it ever clicked to your mind to ask yourself, how long has this student's mind taken in the system? Does it ever click in us?
Sure.
Yeah.
To want to be curious,
Sure.
how much they delayed or how fast they move?
Sure.
Yes? Yes.
Thank you. Every supervisor is indeed needs to know how the students progress. For example, when you have a baby and you're feeding the baby, you want to see the baby progress. We started, but some of this, because I have shared much with this graph, because there are some situations which are beyond your control. A student needs to do a project of maybe 3 million, 4 or 5, and the resources are not there. The students is working, as we say, many of the public health, School of Health Sciences. They have all this, because the student goes, disappears, the county needs results, as the head was saying, the headmasters, the county needs you to be at work. You are a lab technician. For example, many of them are lab technicians. You need to report at 8, at the student has gone. So it needs also to analyze the data, to do DNA analysis and all those very expensive experiments. We don't have such structures here. So our challenge may be different from what we have in education. Because education, we look at variables and all those. But as we must produce scientific data, which has to be verified in the laboratory for it to be published.
Maybe I correct you. Yes. Both of us need scientific data.
Fine.
Only that yours has to be subjected to a laboratory test.
Sure. So, yes, it's but the point is that we need competent laboratories so that, because I cannot go and analyze my data in this common laboratory. For example, we have students who need DNA analysis, and it's costing a lot of money. You can bear with it. It takes a lot of time. In our own way, maybe we can look inwardly and see how we can teach our students before they come here and they develop the concept from within, and they know which institution is going to house them, so that they don't go out there looking for the institutions themselves. When as an institution we can formalize but these agreements with these institutions so that they can be taken out seriously. So I appreciate this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So as supervisors, these are our areas of concern. Why would the students terminate for 2 years? Why are they running away for 2 years and demanding a percentage? If I join this, I'm seeing some stuff. If you look at this, then what is happening? From up here, the student comes down here. Yes? Yeah. They remain stagnated. There are times when they are doing something, and there are times when they are just there. Not there. What is happening with them? And some of the groups, as they were doing their presentations, they tried to think through the challenges that the students go through, which is the next thing I wanted us to think about. What do this master's students and PhD students go through? What challenges you as a supervisor? What challenge do you encounter in your supervision journey? When you're supervising this student who goes underground for 2 years, emerges with a proposal, or emerges with some data, and probably you never even went with them to the field to ascertain whether they actually collected the data. Yes? From your side as a supervisor, what challenges do you face? That's why I was saying you don't dismantle these groups.
I can say that sometimes we lack resources to go and solve resources. Sometimes we use our own resources. For example, somebody is analyzing this data in general. Sometimes we want a decision to make to go and test. For example, spend 2 days in the lab, for example, where work on that. Because some of the experiments take 2-3 days. So you just can't go there and maybe the results is showing you to others. So I need to be there. And that's takes me through what is there. We do field work. Somebody doing field work for chapters. Tell you I'm collecting some samples and chapters of by the time you get the facilitation, the student has done with the experiment. So you know the time this data is true data, you know, these are insights. So it's very hard. So we need some facilitation.
Facilitation
And some structure and way of doing it. So that I know my students in my chapters, doing field work, I get some facilitation, go there for a week or two, and take it or have me.
Any other challenge that you encounter each function, not on the side of the students, as supervisors? What challenges are you experiencing with students? Yes.
The other challenge that I think is sometimes is a system problem. The institutions that you work with. For example, if you have a project, you assign students specific objectives to achieve your objectives. But then the money is channeled to the university or a state institution. You need to buy reagents, for example, from a flower. Place an order. It takes 4 months to get the reagent. What is the student doing for 4 months? So this is a big challenge in terms of how funds are channeled to achieve the reagents that are required for the student. So you find that for a period of 3 years, a research that you have done for 3 solid years, you are taking 2 years to wait for the evidence. Just waiting. You can't move. And some of these projects are done from molecular biology. They are systematic. You can't go to step 4 before you accomplish step 1, 2, and 3. So if you achieve step 1, then you're waiting for another 3 months or 4 months for you to get to step 2. Once you get there, wait again for a couple of months. This is a big challenge.
Thank you.
Then,
Yes.
the other major challenge is lack of skills, research skills in the students. Sometimes, like a case scenario like that, we noted that the student had no proposal writing skills in as much as he was working in a research center. He only picked up proposal. When he was given corrections, he was unable to implement them. So as a supervisor, you are supposed to literally teach the student from one aspect of the proposal to the next until the proposal is complete. Then again, when it comes to manuscript writing, poor writing skills. So lack of skills is a major challenge.
Why don't I go to the worst case where the supervisor lacks the skills?
That's where I was.
Because for me, my little experience is that if the supervisor lacks the skills for supervision, for example, in our area now, a student is examining data that is heavily statistical. and you are limited in that area, or you did not understand the research methodology in your level of study, then you do not even ask for your colleagues, because you can have colleagues still within the department. Some of us feel shy to say, okay, this one I'm not sure what it is. Go so and so. It's the one with the skills. I think we should encourage that culture that if you have a skill gap, just transfer this student, even for advice, to your colleague who can be able to assist them.
Thanks. And
Maybe based on the service of the writing skills.
Yes.
I think that's up to you. Challenge discussion for us. These are very so actually the student is not the one who's writing the what he does is just write someone who the one for it. So as much as you're trying to do the student to it's not even understanding. Okay, just text it somewhere, somebody does the work. So trying to tell it get it's not what really sure for this thing.
technology is here with us.
Another big challenge appreciated is a conflict between supervisors. So, like example, we have internal supervisor and external supervisor who are not brought together for introduction and orientation before they start supervising the student. So each and every supervisor has his or her own opinion. So whereby after the corrections and what happens, they take time agree on a certain point before they move. So I believe the good practice could be whereby this supervisor once were appointed, whereby they are brought together for an orientation, and then they start moving so that they move that conflict.
Thank you. Any other experience?
That is very common.
Yes.
With the issue where someone is attacked, maybe for then even hospital. So the training will be very clear, but you're doing the same thing. So there should be a way to harmonize the thinking of the two, so that it can be in harmony. So that what the proposal have to see out the best. Just criticizes that point because the stars are not connected. That is very important.
Very important. And that's why maybe at the end of the day, we may want to think the way forward, especially for one health sciences. When you attract students to those research centers, what kind of memories do you draw with the research centers? And what kind of mentorship will that student or viewers tap from the research center? Who is that mentor that the person is attached to? And what skills does that person have to be able to mentor and coach your student in the process? Because remember, as much as you are the supervisor, you are not in the research center 24/7. And that means then as institutions, we must have a way of also bringing those mentors in the world of work, in the field of research out there where our students are going on board. So probably that is something we'll talk about today, because I've realized even those of us in education, when we attach students for field attachment out there, there's a lot of conflict. Their school of thinking is different from our school of thinking as trainers. So where do you draw the line and ensure that the conflict are as minimal as possible and for the benefit of the trainee? Any other time?
What do we call this? I have a supervisor, he has some interest in me. And because I also want to finish this graduates, it doesn't matter what I do right, I give in, because I'm speaking this because they are saying of a supervisor. Actually, he chose the student to supervise. He will feel like I want to take up these functions. If we did that at master's level, this student, there was one unit she failed. The supervisor had to go to the lecturer to speak to him, to persuade him so that they could propel and graduate, of which it went through to the system to check whether actually she failed by not working hard or yeah. And then now she passes, she graduates, and she goes back to the same institution to take her PhD. And then the same supervisor tests her. And then now their relationship comes to a point that now it has been exposed. Because I want to graduate, I want to finish my PhD. So that people can call me doctor. I don't care whether I did it the right way, and it doesn't care because the other person is interested. How can we? I also think this is a challenge. Yeah, because at the end of the day, we have people in the market or in the industry who are not competent.
Yes, definitely. You get compromised. And remember, I say, how can we supervise without compromising the quality of our supervision? We'll be looking at the supervisor-student relationship. So, how will we done? Yes.
Yeah, and I'm always mindful concerned that venues where students need supervisors. We have questions. Yeah, and I think that there has
That's a challenge.
Okay, he's raising a very critical issue, and I know you and me maybe a victim in one way or another. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
We may have told our students to come to the car or to meet us in a certain hotel, or I'm in this club, come and join me here. I don't know what you've done, how you've done it. I don't know your experience. And if I'm still a student, I don't know what my experience is. But basically, the bottom line is wherever you meet your students, must be a conducive environment for learning. That is the bottom line as a supervisor. And you know, some of these things nobody will follow you as a supervisor to know what you are doing. But coincidentally, it will still spill out there. It will haunt you. So I always tell people, can we learn to do the right thing? Whether someone is watching or not, do the right thing. Meet the student in the right environment. And sometimes we call them to the hotels, and at the end of the day, you expect them to put your bill. And you don't know the financial status of this student of yours. Some of them, that day when you are to meet, they switch off their phones. Why? I do not have money to go and pay for their beer or their tea, whatever it is. And you know, you cannot stay in that hotel without taking something. So, how does this impact on our individual image and also the image of the institution? It's something to think. A learning environment has to be in place, whatever way. Any other challenge we experience as supervisors? Yes.
Okay, this is not. It could be helpful to us to say that the issues to do with technological skills. Because of distance, sometimes you find the student may need to send one using technology supervisor. And some supervisors may have limitations on accessing the work, and you're reading it, giving comments online and sending it back. So in the process, it may also contribute towards
our digital literacy. When this student, I remember somebody was saying, in two of the presentations, there was the issue that came up that meeting the supervisors was a challenge because the supervisors are far away from where the student is. But the era we are in, you don't have to sit one-on-one with your students. You don't. Technology is here. We have to learn to embrace technology. Save them on the time, save them on the cost. Unless when you feel it is very crucial that I have to meet them one-on-one and square out a number of things. Otherwise, when it comes to proposal reading, the reading of a thesis, it is not mandatory that you need. Embrace technology and make it easy for them to use it. Any other challenge?
I think the challenges are many of it that were trying to let this conversation.
Let them say,
What
let us.
motivation of the supervisor? We are not paying. That's why we're challenging. Why do you have to put in so much effort when you are putting paid? That is one. Then another maybe we are not practically saying or openly saying is we don't have any surveillance. In saying about exam by any or making benefits or not, you realize you don't have any even doing things something is hard. So at that point, you also feel frustrated. Even if you feel frustrated, you understand that there's so much passion into that. To see that
The support. We are lacking the support. And that is true. And not just in this university, but in most of the universities. Yes, it is a challenge that we are living with. And besides that, assist that student for their tomorrow. Just do it for their tomorrow. Any other times? Yes.
I also want just to put up whereby the supervisor is now even a student who is harmed. So despite the case, we look at the basic training, especially in research and methodology. Whereby the student is now not the supervisor. The supervisor expects this student to have no training. But now the supervisor goes again to square one, starting to train this patient before they put up the fees for training. So this particular case, if the training curriculum can be improved, whereby even like for example, data analysis is included, and even simple referencing, whereby even the student does not know how to reference, but here you are. So you have to go basically again to square one, start teaching one after the other, like that. So it takes a lot of time.
The quality of the students we are dealing with that. There was a hand up.
Sometimes you are scholars, the CEO of some companies, and maybe you're just very good supervision.
Yes.
Certainly, so
They feel they know much than you. After all, you are junior staff.
I mean, that's important. So sometimes we have students between for areas that follow the map. We still have these students, we are supervising, we have the teaching load and all that. And so if you schedule a date with a student, maybe they don't know more than a date, so you upload child. So you have to schedule a date for that.
Workload is a challenge.
Just start with that. Yes, so many students are
Yes. And that is the workload. Yes.
Mine is just a representation, not a challenge, but it can be a challenge for all of us again. If we can give them some training, especially also stranded students, depending on where they say, how we can actually do this proposal, especially to the funds.
I have somebody listening to that. Very important. Very important. You empower them at that age, and they learn in research, they become good researchers.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether this is it's a system error where for you to get promoted, you must have supervised a number of students. And therefore, if I picked somebody to supervise away from my area, so long as I get promoted, what value will I add? If, for example, if I'm supervising molecular biology and I'm a neurologist, I don't understand molecular biology. So I want to be doing editing and giving students comments on formats and work. So these students will go on the web and the work is subscribed. What my people say, they are sent back, but the driver was faulty. So could there be also system areas where we are keeping students, areas we don't understand, and we give them very little help? We are only concerned about their promotion. Yeah, that's what I think could be a challenge.
And that is very, very critical as well. The person who is responsible for assigning the students to supervisors. What is the study area of the students? And what is the training area of the supervisors? And that has also been a source of some of the conflicts. That this is my way of thinking, and this is supervisors' big ways of thinking, which may not agree because both of them are from different areas of specialization. So allocation of supervisors becomes very important. Besides what you've mentioned, this unrealistic supervisory expectations. When you assign that student, what kind of expectations do you have? I'm sure when we are all Globals, we want to imagine that this student must graduate in 2 years. This student must graduate in 3 years, only to realize they're taking 8 years. So as a supervisor, what do? You feel frustrated. Can you imagine? This student who has tied someone's hand for 8 years, and there's minimum, there's not much you can do about it. They still remain your student unless you disown them. But the question is, when they come back after 2 years, are you able to reconnect what they were working on? Now that you could be having 10 more other students. So expectations are very important. And this ensures that if you are very realistic, you understand that, yes, the system could go on well, or there could be breakdown points, then it becomes easy to absorb as a supervisor. Then the student-professor relationships is also a challenge that is. And what you've not told me is the last one, lack of commitment. Are we committed in our supervisory work? I'm sure we will say, I'm not motivated, I'm not paid. They have without the money from me, so I'm not able to meet the student. That is true. But what is the level of commitment to your supervision? How do we overcome these challenges? I'm sure most of you, when they were giving out the challenges, they also suggested possible solutions to it. And these are some of the solutions that I got through, that whenever we assign these students, it is our responsibility to sit down with them and come up with a roadmap. And this is where we many times we fail. You are given a student, you assign a student, and you never sit with them to agree. How long are you going to take to develop your concept note? Or how long are you going to take to work on your corrections at the Department of Defense? I'm hearing you talking about the school. Huh? They are defended. How long will they take to make the corrections? So if you have that roadmap, then you have the moral authority to ask the student, this is what we had agreed. Why are you taking 2 years to do corrections of our proposal? Yes, you want to bring the result of your experiment after 1 month. Why are you taking 5 months? And you can push them because you had a road. Then we always say you can only keep what you have. You can't give someone what you don't have. If you ask me for a pen, I can only give you this pen because I have the pen. What is your skill and knowledge level in connection with the kind of students that you supervise? You will not ask me to supervise a student in the area of geography or in the area of a different subject from my vocational kind of training. That's where I'm comfortable. That is where I'm broadly knowledgeable in, and I would assist the student because supervision is not just having the numbers. Supervision is about the value that you have to that. The support. We also can circumvent those challenges by ensuring that we give them support in terms of mentorship, support in terms of training, support in terms of coaching, support in terms of the actual supervision. If I'm assigned, I was sharing this experience with a friend of mine, and I was telling them, I was assigned a student from Rwanda. And this student did not know English at all. When they brought me their first concept note, it took me 1 month to read a paragraph, a single paragraph. Editorial issues, the words are not making sense. So I read a sentence and I'm like, I close the book. Then I sat down and asked myself, for how long will I take to do this? Am I helping the student? And because this student was on scholarship, I called her and even the mere greetings, how are you? Fine. How are you doing? Yes. How are you doing? Yes. I realized communication is a big, because I had not taught them, had not interacted with that previously. So I didn't know that very well. My only concern was, why would someone at a master's level submit such a financially kind of work? So I went back to the persons who had given her scholarship, and I went with the document that this student had shared. I told the professor who was in charge, can you look at this? Can you read? Can you get sense out of it? And he said, I told him, kindly enroll this student in English lessons. That is the only wish. Yesterday she defended that thesis. If I show you the text messages she keeps sending me back, you realize when you connect with your students, they see you more than a supervisor. You become part of their life. If I just ignored and said, after all, they know why they came treated. Let them sort out themselves. Would that student be where they are? So I ensured that they've been enrolled in English lessons. She went through, she did another concept note. I told Prof, no, not it. One more. Another session for English. Now she can express with the defense panel and follow what they are saying. So as supervisors, we have a responsibility of identifying the training weakness areas of our own students and find a way of providing a solution. You don't become a solution yourself by telling them, what is this? Yes. You know those comments that we make? Those documents. You know that. I wish we had them, and then we look at the ways of marking or giving guidelines in proposals and tests, but we will not do that. So that you realize when you are to assist the students, you give them a hint on the direction they should take. That's why you are a supervisor. If we identify their training weaknesses, how then do we come in? Somebody in your presentations has said, we may want to think about the way we've done your curriculum and bring in those areas that are very common issues or areas of challenge to our students. So if data analysis is a problem to most of the students, how can you ensure that you have an element of data analysis in one of your courses or two of your courses? If referencing is a challenge to your students, the person who takes the students through a research methods, how can they ensure that they have a topic on forms of referencing? It is us to provide the solutions to the students and guide them appropriately. But we will not do that if we are not committed and meet ourselves. They have to start with us. When you tell a student, go and use Doctoral referencing, you know how to use it. Go and use envelopes or maybe do you know how to do it? Because whether they do it shabbily, you will not realize because first, you're not competent in it. So we have a challenge. We have to be a step ahead of our own students. So mentoring is also part of this. And remember, mentorship should be offered by you, the supervisor, And those of us who are in practical areas, we expect mentorship to be offered by the persons we have attached these students to during their research period. So this person the student is in Cambridge. Whom have you identified in Cambridge as your mentor to your students? Do they have the mentorship skills? What do you expect them to deliver? And that is why MOUs become very important. And also training of those external mentors and coaches. But then course supervision. And we realize that course supervision has not been easy. You'll be telling me about your experience in this. And then lastly, we need to be resilient as supervisors. Sometimes it's not very easy, especially when you are dealing with students who feel they are senior than you, or students who feel they are more wealthy than you, students who feel they are very knowledgeable in that area than you as a supervisor. You have to remain resilient. And also very committed to your course. You know, sometimes you read through your work, you are worked up. I gave this person these corrections, they've not done them. Instead, they just, when you use the track changes, what do? Accept all. They delete the comments, and then they send it. You've taken 2 months with that document to read through. The student takes 2 hours, or even 1 hour, and sends it back to you. You look at it and you feel honored. Is it the end of the student's position? No. It is a calling, and that calling has a cost. The cost is your commitment and your receipts. You have to hold on despite all that. You have your own way of approaching the students, tell them what you expect. If you are drawn a roadmap, if you are sat with these students and told them, this is what I expect. And when I give you corrections, kindly, this is what I expect. I send you corrections today, I don't expect your feedback tomorrow morning. It tells me you've not gone through all the corrections. Draw those roadmaps and make sure that it is clear to them and keep reminding them in those groups. If the moment they realize that you are very strict to it, they will always do the right thing. So we are here to be committed and to remain resilient in supervision. We are not giving up despite the many challenges. Now, the nature of the postgraduate study, here I just wanted us to look at the 2 scenarios. When I'm supervising a master's student and when I'm supervising a doctorate student, where is the line? Sometimes you want to make the life of the master's students too hard that they take 10 years to graduate for a course for 2 years. Yes. And then the PhD takes about 15 years. By the time they are done, they are almost retired. So it's good to understand the level of the training of each of the 2 groups and get to know that the master's students may not be too much into the research to come up with new knowledge, but they are expected to exhibit an element of having mastered, understood, and grasped their area of study. Of course, in a given specific area. But when it comes to doctorates, I'm training as a doctor. It calls for much more. It calls for much more that I have to do some research, and it is hands-on, so that at the end of the day, I come up with new knowledge. And that's why those of us who attend defenses and that level, somebody will always ask me, what is the new knowledge? And this is where we ask ourselves, what kind of research do we guide our doctorate students to undertake? Those who are in health sciences, I am sure you may not have the opportunity to do theoretical work. But those of us in education and social sciences, we don't mind. But what happens? When we focus on more theory, at the end of the day, we're coming up with the research to be kept in the cabinets. We are not impacting the society with our research. But if I identify a gap that people in the arid areas, the other day you still undergoing COVID. You identify a gap that so many people are dying because of COVID. Then you ask yourself, what kind of solution can you provide? And for me to provide a solution, I need to come up with a kind of an equipment that can assist those that have low oxygen in their bodies. Have you provided a solution? Yes. So your work will not be in the cabinet. Your work will be utilized in the field because you are providing a solution. And that's why people who will always focus on action research will have better chances even in getting finances. Because you've identified the gap and you want to solve a specific problem for the benefit of the community. Remember, research is not about me. It is not about your students. It is about what you are giving back to the society. A little bit on research etiquette. How do you promote? Of course, the issue of supervisor-student relationship has been mentioned, and it is important that we be aware to the fact that in supervision, you must respect. As a supervisor, I must respect my students. I must show dignity to my students, and I must all be courteous. And the same, I expect reciprocated to me. You respect them, they respect you. Then, if you are to have a healthy relationship with the students, as much as possible, avoid harassing them, avoid abusing them. And this is not just the verbal harassment, the verbal abuse, but the emotional, the mental, the sexual, you can name them because they are real. Yes? Oh, now you get quiet. Oh, the comments that we make when we are reviewing their proposals and their thesis.
Yeah, there is one I encountered yesterday with a
Yes,
student. Yeah. He told me that he wrote he gave a supervisor a work, and immediately the supervisor told him, "This is trash." But that's not a student from our institution. He's a colleague, but a student also. So he was so much depressed. Yeah, he was almost giving up.
And that's why I started by why are our students dropping out? Part of it is because of us as supervisors. How are you dealing with your students? How are you handling them? What kind of language do you use with these students? And some of them are too mature that those petty words provoke them. And they don't see the reason as to why they should proceed with those studies. If this is what I'm getting in the system, I'd rather stay at home. I'd rather do other things. But when they enroll, they are not envisaged that they will leave their studies happy. So what is your role in ensuring that the students go all the way through their studies? Or what is your role in participating in their dropouts? Accessibility. Yes. Oh, we have this. I hope nobody is close yet.
Need a break.
You need a tip.
Where is it?
Let's let me finish on this and then we can have what. Let me finish on this and then you can have the children.
Yes.
The other aspect that we promote research etiquette between you and your students is accessibility. Are you there for them? Can they find you when they need you? Let somebody raise an issue on this. Where do they find them? Is it in the park? Or is it in the car? Where are you? The element of your house. Privacy. Privacy is very necessary. Some of these students, you walk this journey with them to a point where they trust you so much. And they can share some of their personal issues. Somebody has gone through a lot of trauma, and especially during this COVID-19, and they tell me, I went underground because of babysitting, or this is what happened with my family or my kids. Kindly, if they trust you that much, make sure that you don't expose them. Ensure privacy of their dreams, and then let's learn to be honest with them. If you're not available, tell them I'm not available. And with these gadgets, the phones, tell them I'm here. In 30 minutes, I'm coming. And then the student waits for you in the office for the whole day, or even 3 days. It reaches a point you are not even picking their calls. You are not responding to their emails. It's always good to be honest. Thank you, let's have it.
Yeah. She has spoken like a mother. Can we just leave her out? I think that's not good enough. You can even do the Nyayo one. All the 3 factorial. Each one is more scientific here. 3 factorial. Okay. 1. 3 factorial, you go 3 times. Let's start. Thank you, Madam. I think now we have even changed, and this is a topic we have never covered here. I want to thank those who came up with this topic. It is really a pertinent topic, and we have lost the students due to poor supervision. I even want to think that the problem is more on our side. Yeah, because when you take up students and you want to supervise them, then on the way you say you are not motivated. And at the end of the day, it is the child that suffers. If you take up a child, the child does not know even the issues of payment. They does not look at it from there. And even some, issues of honesty. I think, Madam, it's good that you have just put it very clearly. Dignity and all that. And it is more of men calling ladies to get into the whatever they are, hotels. By the way, Dean, it is never good. We have cases like that where students are called to hotels and they are told to do some, I don't know which word to use. And if they don't, then they will never graduate. In fact, a week ago also, a student came to my office and was really crying. Which means those are really issues that are affecting us here on the ground, and the students are really frustrated. What we have gone through, we even never wanted. I've tried to listen to some lecturers seated closer to me. They say that the training is so good that they even don't want you to stop. Yeah, and the issues of commitment. I'm really committed to supervision. I really don't want to water down what the Doctoral has said, but I want to think we will have a plenary session where we will brainstorm.
Sure.
And colleagues, I want to think that even after Victoria has gone, we will have to organize for a workshop so that we can capture all of us.
Yes.
Again, we even need to get out of this university so that we can talk to ourselves.
Yes.
Which kind of behavior do we have? Our habits, are they really good? Are we really doing good to the students? I think we need to brainstorm, change the way we think, and then be able to bring up a society that will take this country forward. Thank you so much. I know you want to take tea. There is a lot of tea there for mandasi and other issues like eggs you can take. So we will have a break for only 5 minutes. I think
5 minutes.
in the interest of time, we can take tea and then come as we are taking maybe facilitation. So
Yeah, that's better.
so take your tea, then get seated, and then we move to the next session, which will be chaired by Dr. Mungari will chair the next session. So be alert. So members, please take your tea. Thank you for this.